So this week we're talking about the external environment, and part of the reason is to every once in a while we have to make an assessment as to what has been changing. Does a strategy need to consider, especially in an environment of disruption, what are some of the new tactics or new strategies that need to be developed in order to compete? So lots of places where you can find information. Of course, there's lots of consulting companies that offer reports that you can take a look at. McKinsey, Deloitte, EY, KPMG, Accenture, and many more that offer some perspective, including lots of industries have their own reporting processes where they'll talk about some of the impact of the environment on that particular industry. StatsCan always has some interesting information to look at. And the idea is to see in all of this, again, where there are opportunities or some risks that need to be addressed. So how do we utilize this information? So lots of tools are being discussed this week. The external PESTEL. So what are the impacts of the political environment? And if a company is in multiple countries, that political environment may be quite different in each country that they operate in. So you have to consider exactly where the products are being sold and the impact of some of those environments depending on where you are. Similarly with economics, social, cultural, you're looking at trends, the way that the market segments are evolving, whether or not they're attractive, and also the technological environment, the actual physical environment, the ecology side of things, because there's been an awful lot of new regulations and political action with regards to the role that companies need to play, as well as consumers that have interests in companies that are perhaps more green or have values and so forth that align with their thinking. So PESTEL is one tool. You'll see that the five forces analysis looks at similarly the environment, but from the perspective of how strong the suppliers, the customers, the competitors, and so forth are in that particular against that particular company, and again, whether or not there's some actions that need to be taken in order to reduce some risk or take advantage of some opportunities there. Driving forces, this is the concept of, what makes this industry work and what is it that you need in order to succeed. So you've got to look at, the impact of things like globalization or, the amount of technology, or the amount of consolidation that might be happening in the industry. So these driving forces could have an impact on the strategies of the firm going forward. So SWOT analysis, another tool that you probably know quite well. The opportunities and threats are the external portion of the SWOT, and there you're strictly looking at opportunities from the perspective of things that are developing in the market that you might devise some strategies or tactics to take advantage of. So it's very much an external point of view. Whether or not you choose to go after some of those things, those are options or tactics that you will devise based on these external opportunities. For example, if there's a change in demography and that's advantageous for your firm, then you can devise products and services for that particular change in demography. But the opportunity is that change of demography. So important, I think, to divide what is an opportunity versus what is a strategy or a tactic to take advantage of it. Threats on the other side, let's not confuse them with weaknesses. So weaknesses are always things that you can control internally. So, if you have very poor sales or poor relationships with staff, those are internal weaknesses. Threats are things like competitors or new regulation changes to the economy or things like that, or changes to the physical environment, such as global warming and all those kinds of things. You can't control them, but you can mitigate some of those risks through various measures. So that's another tool that you can use to draw some possible opportunities to devise new strategies or some risk mitigation efforts. Another one is that's really important is to look at competitor analysis and what they're doing. Perhaps your competitors are getting stronger. Maybe you were the strongest in the market, and you had sort of defensive strategies where you erected some barriers to keep the competitors out. But when your competitors get stronger, now you have to think in terms of offensive strategies. So what are you going to do better than them in order to regain some of your strength or your market share? So important to really look at what competitors are doing now and what their moves might be going forward. So if there's a lot of movement that's happening in terms of maybe competitors are doing a lot of mergers and acquisitions, or maybe they're doing a lot of investments into marketing, you need to take account of some of those maneuvers so that you can decide what you might end up countering with. Finally, and we've discussed this from the beginning, the importance of understanding your market segment, and that is incorporated perhaps in some of your other analysis, like Pestel or your 5 forces or your driving forces and all those kinds of things. But not a bad idea to re-look at your market segments and whether or not there's some new market segments that are maybe evolving, or some old ones that have reached a different life cycle, and you need to think in terms of changes that you need to make to your strategy to fit. The last piece I will say is about what does this all mean. So it's great to do a lot of analysis, but then you can get into analysis paralysis. So you really need to look at each of these individual assessment tools and think about what it says about the external environment. Is it attractive or not? Some firms operate in completely unattractive markets, but they're still able to succeed because they have the right strategies and tactics. So just because you do, let's say, a 5 force analysis and you determine that all the forces are negative, doesn't mean that you can't still have a valuable offer and succeed into that market environment. But it's important to recognize, what those risks are, and how you're going to work within those confines. So another area that this external environment allows you to do is to do a whole list of possible options going forward and determine which ones are the low-hanging fruit or the best areas that you need to focus on. And sometimes it'll be, cost reduction. Sometimes it will be growth. This is an opportunity to look at, what are the things that you can put on the back burner and what are the things that need to come forward based on that external analysis. Because those are your opportunities to consider. And when we get a little further into the course, we're going to talk about, all of those options that come out of the analysis and how you make some decisions to make some recommendations to go forward. All right. Well, have a great week, and good luck with all of these analyses that you're going to have to consider. Thank you. Bye-bye.